So today's topic is going to be looking at 4 operations. It is a grade 1 topic for your GCSE maths exam, and the things that are going to be covered today are addition and subtraction with decimals, multiplication, multiplications with decimals, long division, division with decimals, some questions for you to try, and then the answers for you as well. Let's get into it. We're going to start off with some addition. The first thing that we would do when we are adding is we would set up our column method. Now what that means is I am lining up my numbers one underneath the other, and really importantly I am lining up my units on top of each other, so my 6 and my 7. We've got our 10s need to be in line, our 7 and our 2, and finally our hundreds, in this case our 4 and our 9. They won't always line up so nicely. We could have something with 2 digits, something with 5. We'll look at on question 3 where we have 3 digits and 2. So the first thing that we need to do is we've got 6 add 7, which gets me 13. So I kept my 3 here, which is my units, and I carry my 10 over. We've then got 7 add 2, add our 1, which gets us 10. Importantly, we're leaving our 0 here and carrying over our 1. Then we've got 4, 9 and 1, which gets us 14. So our final answer for that one is 1,403. Moving on to question 2, we've got 349, take away 237. Again, making sure things are lined up. First of all, then we've got 9 take away 7, which is 2. 4 take away 3, which is 1, and then 3 take away 2, which is 1. So that would be our final answer for the second question. Question 3 then, going off the same trend as what we've just been doing, setting up our column method, we've got 531, and we've got to take away 86. Now here's where we spoke about lining up our units and our 10. So in this case, the 86 would go here. So that 1 and that 6 are in line. Oh, just correct that. Then we've got the added extra of 1 take away 6. Well, yes, that would get us -5, but in the case of column subtraction, we don't want to go into negative numbers. So we're going to have to borrow from the 10s. So my 3 becomes a 2, and I take 1, and my number here becomes 11. Then I'm going to do 11 take away 6, which gets me 5. Moving on to the next part, then I've got 2 take away 8, and again, I don't want to go into negative numbers, so I'm going to have to borrow from what I've got here. My 5 becomes a 4, and then the 2 now becomes a 12 because I'm carrying it over a 1. 12 take away is 4, and then 4 take away nothing, if you'd like, that makes it clearer, is just 4. So your answer for that one is 445. Lastly then, and one that stunts a few people, but some of us may be following along at this point and want to give it a try. So I've got 201 take away 99. So just like before, I can't do 1 take away 9 because it would take me into -8, but I also can't borrow from a 0. I can't make that -1. So I need to go all the way over to my 2 and turn that into a 1, and then carry my 1 over to my 0. I can't take it all the way to the 1 yet. I then can cross out this 10, and this can become a 9, and I can carry my 1 here. So that's how you would deal with the question when there's a 0 and you're needing to carry. 11 take away 9 gets you 2. 9 take away 9 is 0, and 1 take away 0 is 1. So your answer for that final question is 102. We need to set up these numbers using our column addition. However, the most important thing to do is that we need to make sure that our decimal places are in line. They need to be in line as follows. So I've got my units above and below each other, the 0 and the 3, and then my tenths, the 7 and the 6. So we're then just going to go ahead and answer this as normal. Once you've got them in line, you do exactly as you would your normal addition or subtraction. 7 add 6 gets you 13, so you leave your 3 and you carry your 1. Your decimal as well needs to go in line with what's above. 0, 3 and 1 gets you 4. And then 1 on its own, if you want to put a 0 there, you can do. Just gets you 1. Next, we've got 25.8. And we're going to add to that 0.13. Again, really important that those decimal places are in line. Notice that my 3 has nothing above it. And if you want to, you can add a 0. Same as under the 2, you can add a 0 if that makes things clearer for you. We are adding, so I've put my little addition symbol. 0 add 3 is just your 3. 8 add 1 is 9. Again, your decimal is in the same place as above. 5 add 0, 5. 2 add 0, 2. Your final answer being 25.93. Next up then is subtraction. We're going to use the same rules that we did in my previous video on subtracting. It's just the most important thing is that we're lining everything up. So the 8.71, making sure those decimals are in line as so. And the rest of it is the same. You can add a 0 again if that helps. And we're subtracting. 2 take away 1 gets you 1. 4 take away 7 would take you to -3. Again, I can't do that with my column, so I'm going to have to borrow. My 9 becomes an 8 as I take 1 away, and I carry my 1 to my 4, which makes 14. 14 take away 7 is 7. My decimal, again, in the same place. 8 take away 8 is 0, and 1 take away nothing is 1, leaving me with 10.71. Finally, I've got 30.03, and I'm taking away 12.84. As you can see again, those decimal points are in line, which is the only way that I can set this question up. 3 take away 4 then, I cannot do that, and I can't borrow from either of these zeros because I can't go into negative. So I'm going to have to go all the way to this 3, take 1 away from that to become 2, and add my 1 to my 0. I will then borrow this 1 from this one, to make that 9 and carry that over to my other 0. And again, I'm then going to have to borrow 1 from there, so that becomes 9 again, and then my 3 becomes 13. 13 take away 4 gets you 9. 9 take away 8 leaves you with 1. Your decimal goes directly under your others. 9 take away 2 is 7, and 2 take away 1 is 1, leaving you with 17.9. Thank you for watching. There are 2 ways in which I'm going to show you how to multiply. The first one is going to be the column method. The second one is going to be the Chinese grid method, which personally is my favourite as I think it leaves less room for error, especially when we move on to decimals, which will be in a different video. So if we're going to do column then, we will have to just set it up like this. It doesn't actually matter as much, especially when there's only 1 digit underneath. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to do 3 times your 4, which gets you 12, and you're going to carry your 1. Your next step then is going to be 3 times 9, which gets you 27, add your 1 is 28, and your final answer is 282. The method in which I'm going to use, however, is going to be this method, which is the Chinese grid method. I have 2 numbers in 94, so I'm going to split my grid into 2, and then obviously just 3 is its own digit on its own. So this first part here, this first box on the right is 4 times 3. It's this digit and this digit times together. Well, 4 times 3 gets me 12. Then on the next part is my 3 times my 9, which gets me 27. You're then going to add up in what I like to call them little train tracks. You're going to add up down the diagonals. So it's really important when you're setting it up that your diagonal lines go from the top right to the bottom left of each box. This does become a simpler method the more and more we look at it. So for this first column here, I've got 2. My next one, I've got a 1 and a 7, which gets me 8. And then finally, I've got 2 on its own, which is just 2. So as you see again, I've got the number 282. Right, if we move on then to 2 digits by 2 digits, we've got 2 times my 7, which gets me 14. So I'm going to carry my 1. And then 2 times 4 gets you 8. Add your 1 is 9. Really importantly, now I'm moving on to my tens. So I'm going to have to carry on with a 0 so that my place value is right. Then I've got 6 times 7, which is 42. To carry my 4. And then 6 times 4, which is 24. Add my 4 is 28. You're then going to add those two together. 4, 11, 9 and 2. So as you can see with a method like that, as you start getting 4 by 3 digits, 4 by 4, etc., you're going to have a lot of adding and there's quite a lot of room for error, which is why I prefer to use the Chinese grid method. It's nice to see both methods, however, because everyone has a different preference in what method they would use. You've then got 47 on the top and 62 here, so a 2 by 2 grid. Noticing that the diagonals go from the top right to the bottom left of each of my boxes. Really important is setting that box up right. 7 times 6 then is my first one, which gets me my 42. And then 4 times 6, which is 24. 7 times 2 gets me my 14. And finally 4 times 2 is 8. You notice it is the same calculations in the one we've done before, it's just all set up in the grid. So again, I'm calling those my train tracks. They need to set up as follows like this. The reason as well on this bottom left box I've put 0, 8 is because the top part is for your tens and the bottom part is for your units. I've got 4 on this column, then I've got 2, a 1 and an 8, which gets me 11. So I'm going to put my 1 and I'm going to carry 1, just like you do with addition. 4 add 4 add 1 gets me my 9, and then I'm left with a 2. Noticing again that that's exactly the same number, 2,914, 2,914. Finally then, I've got 129 times 81. 1 times 9 gets me just 9. 1 times 2 is just 2. And 1 times 1 is just 1. Quite a nice one. Then again, I need to fill in with a 0. 8 times 9 is 72, so I'm going to carry my 7. 8 times 2 is 16. Add your 7 is 23. And then 1 times 8 is 8. Add your 2 is 10. I'm going to add those both up. 9, 4, 4, 0 and 1. And finally then, using that exact same method as before for the same question. So 129 times 81. I've got a 3 by 2 grid. So making sure I've set that up right as follows. 9 take away 8 then gets me my 72. 8 times 2 is 16. And 8 times 1 is 8. Making sure I put 0 and then 8 because I've got my tens and my units. 9 times 1 is 9. 2 times 1 is 2. And 1 times 1 is 1. Adding up down that diagonal then, I've got a 9 on its own. 2, a 0 and a 2 is 4. 7, 6, 0 and 1 is 14. So I'm going to carry my 1. And then I've got 8, 1, 0 and 1, which is 10. 10,449 is your final answer, which is the same as the one on the last question. So with this method then, I'm going to use the Chinese grid method, which I used in my previous video on just plain multiplication. I will do one later on, however, where I show you the column method, just so that you know the difference and also where to place your decimal point. So using the column, should I say the Chinese grid method, you want a 3 by 2 grid. 18.4 along the top and 2.6 along the side. Doesn't matter which way around you do your numbers, as long as you've either got a 2 by 3 or a 3 by 2. 4 times 2 then gets you your 8, and 4 times 6 gets you 24. 8 times 6 is 16, 1 times 2 is 2. 8 times 6 is 48, and then 1 times 6 is 6. Now, with my different colour, I'm just going to show you how to add up your columns again. So you've got 4, 8, 2 and 8 gets you 18, so you need to carry the 1. 0, 6, 4, 6 and 1 gets you 17, carry you 1 again. 1, 2 and 1 gets you your 4. Now the next part is really important, and that's where your decimal goes. So I'm going to use a highlighter for this, just to kind of show you in a little more detail where it goes. So if you follow your decimal down the diagonal and across and then down to the diagonal, your decimal is going to go here. So again, you're looking at where do those decimals meet, and then you're going to go down, and that's going to be your answer. So for this, our answer would be 47.84. So if we go on to the next one then and we try that again, we're going to have the same grid. It's going to be a 3 by 1 grid. 3 by 2, should I say? Making sure those diagonals go from the top right to the bottom left. You're going to have 21.8 and 1.7. It's up to you if you do your decimal at the start or at the end. I can show you now at the start. You're looking at where those decimals meet, and then you're going to follow it down the diagonal. So the decimal will go here. Then you're going to fill your table out as normal. So 8 times 1, 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 8 times 7, 56, sorry, 1 times 7, and then 2 times 7, 14. So you're going to then add up 6, 8, 5 and 7, 20, 0, 1, 0, 4 and 2, which is 7, and then 3. So your answer for that one will be 37.06. I'm going to show you that exact same question now, but with the column method, just so that you can see both of the methods. Just rub this out at the top as well. So if we then go ahead and use our column method, we've got 21.8, 1.7. So we're going to use the exact same method that we used for just normal multiplication. So what you can actually do, if you feel more comfortable, is you can just write that as 218 and 17, just ignoring those decimals, and we'll come to the decimals at the end. So you're going to just times as normal. So you've got 7 times 8, which is 56, carry your 5. 7 times 1 is 7, add your 5 is 12, carry your 1. 7 times 2 is 14, add your 1 is 15. We're now going to add that placeholder of a 0. 1 times 8 is 8, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. We then need to add these, so we've got 6, 10, 7 and 3. Now here's the important part, is where does that decimal go? It's not as simple as just following it down and putting it straight underneath the decimal, because when we multiply with decimals we are moving our place value. So instead what we're looking at is how many digits do we have after our decimal. Well, we've got 1 here and 1 here. So our decimal place needs to come 1, 2 into our answer, which will get us 37.06. So that's the two different methods on how to times with decimals. I'm going to rub that off now for you, and then we're going to go on to question 3. If you feel like pausing this and having a go, then do that and see if you get the same answer as me. So we're going to use our Chinese grid method. And this time we need a 2 by 2 grid. We've looked at 3 by 2. This time we've got a 2 by 2. So we've got 4.5 and 2.9. Now, it's up to you whether at this point you want to work out where your decimal goes or you want to do it after. I'm going to do it now. So I'm looking at where do those decimals meet, and then I need to follow it down that diagonal. So my decimal point would be here. 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 9 is 45, and 4 times 9 is 36. Now adding up those diagonals, we've got 5, 10, and 13. 13.05. Next one. We've got 1.7 times 3. So here's the important part with this one. Once we've filled it out, it's where that decimal is going. Because where would my decimal point go on the number 3? Well, the number 3 is just like writing 3.0. That's the same number. So my decimal point would come here. So when I'm looking at joining them up then, I'm looking at where they meet, and they in fact meet here at the bottom and go down the diagonal here. So my answer would be 5.1. The good thing with decimals is you can kind of think if they weren't there. If you had, for example, if you rounded 1.7 to, for example, 2, 2 times 3 is 6. So you know that your number is going to be somewhere near 6. If you, for example, put your decimal after the 1 and got 51, well, you know that 1 point something times 3 wouldn't be anywhere near 51. So sometimes you can use a process of elimination to work out if your answer is right or not. I'm just going to rub this out so we've got a little bit more space for this last one. And I'm going to show you this last one again using both methods, just because I think it'd be useful to see. So if I was to use the column method, I'm going to forget about that decimal being there. So I've got 5 times 2 gets me 10, carry my 1. 5 times 6 gets me 30, add my 1 is 31. 5 times 1 is 5, add your 3 is 8. Now, looking at those numbers after the decimal then, I only have one number after my decimal, so my decimal must come one place in. If I had 2, it'd come 2 places in, 3 places in, and so on. Trying that question then using our column method, Chinese grid method, I keep saying that, I do apologise. 16.2 times by 5, so we've got 10, 30 and 5, 0, 1 and 8. Looking then at my decimal and where they meet, well, if you think of the number 5, your decimal would be right at the bottom here. 16.2 is here. So if you're looking at where they meet, you would come down your diagonal here. Again, your answer being 81. You can put 81.0, but 81 is the same. So when we use long division then, this is for questions that we may not be able to do in our head. It's for larger numbers or even using decimals to divide. You may know what 300 divided by 6 is, but it may be one of those things that you have to work out how many multiples there are of 6 into 300, which may take you a little bit longer. So we use something called long division, or the bus stop method. So the number that we are dividing, so the 300 goes on the inside of our bus stop and the 6 on the outside. So what I'm starting to do now is I'm looking at how many 6s go into 3. Well, I don't have any 6s in 3, because if you think of your 6 times table down the side, well, 3 is simply not in the 6 times table. So because there aren't any 3s, I'm going to carry 3 to my next number. So that number becomes 30. 6s in 30 then, if I was to carry on, I have 5 6s in 30. Nothing left over as it goes straight up to 30. And then 6s in 0 is just nothing. So your answer to 300 divided by 6 is 50. Moving on then to 150, again that goes inside the bus stop, divided by 4. Well, 4's into 1, there are none. Again, if you think of your 4 times table, if I just write a few of them for you, there's no 1s. 1 is not in the 4 times table. 4's into 5 then, because I need to carry my 1, so 4's into 15. I've got 4, 8, 12. I can go up to 12. So I have 3 4's in 15. And left over from 12 to 15 is 13, 14, 15, which is 3 left over. 4's into 30 then is 7. And I have 2 left over. Now, I don't just put at this point remainder 2. If I think of the number 150, I can carry that on with zeros. So my 2 carries on onto this 0 after the decimal, becoming the number 20. 4's into 20 then is 5. So my answer to this question is 37.5. I've then got 245.5 divided by 2. 2's into 2 is 1. 2's into 4 is 2. 2's into 5 then, I go 2, 4. I can fit 2 in and I have 1 left over. 2's into 15 is 7 and I have 1 left over. 2's into 10 is 5. So my answer to this one is 122.75. I've then got the number 468.8 divided by 5. It's up to you if you want to add the zeros to start with so you don't get confused. You might not know how many zeros, but you can add as many as you like. So when we think about a 5 times table then, there are no 4s in the 5 times table. So I have none there and I carry my 4. My number's now 46. There are 9 5s in 46 because I can get all the way up to 45 and I have 1 left over. 5s into 18 then, I can fit 3, 5, 10, 15. So I have 3 left over as well to get me to 18. 5 into 38 is 7 because I can get all the way up to 35. I have 3 left over. And finally, 5 into 30 is 6. So my answer for this one is 93.76. Dividing by a decimal. So this is one of those questions that you usually find at the start of a paper. It's usually 1 or 2 marks, or is even part of another question and people can't seem to answer them. There's one main rule when dividing by a decimal, and that is that you don't want the decimal to be there. So we've got to work out how to get rid of it. And that is by timesing by different powers of 10, depending on how many decimal places we have. So for this first question then, we've got 400 divided by 2.5. And if we just look at that second number, the 2.5, that's the important one. That's the number that we don't want to be a decimal. The first number, it doesn't matter. So we have 1 decimal place in 2.5. So we want to times this whole thing by 10. And we do it to both sides, the left and the right of our divide symbol. So we've got 4,000 divided by 25. And now that's our new equation. And no, at the end, we do not need to divide by 10 again. So we're now going to do 4,000 divided by 25. So 25's in 4, none. So I'm going to carry the 4. 25's into 40, however, I can fit 1 whole 1, that gets me to 25, and I have 15 left over. 25's in 150 is 6, and then I've got nothing in the 0. Now, if you are thinking to yourself now, surely that's not right, surely I'm going to have to divide by a power of 10, then feel free to check that on your calculator and convince yourself by doing both of those sums. So try 400 divided by 2.5 and 4,000 divided by 25, and you will get 160. Next one then. Same again, I've got 1 decimal place, so I need to times everything by 10 to get rid of it. So I've got 7,400 divided by 8, and that is my new division. 8's into 7 then, none. 8's into 74, well, if we want to write down our 8's, if you're not comfortable, you've got 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80. So you can fit 9 into there. The reason I'm showing you this is just so you know how much to carry. That takes you to 72, and you can carry over 2. 8's into 20 then is 2 with 4 left over. 8's into 40 is 5. So your answer for that one is 925. 90.1 divided by 0.05. So the importance of this is, whilst there is a decimal place here, I'm not bothered about that. It's this that's important, this number here. And I have 2 decimal places. So I not only do I have to times by 10, I'm actually timesing by 100 to get rid of it. So I've got 9,010 divided by 5 is my new division. 5's into 9, is 1 with 4 left over. 5's into 40 is 8. 5's into 1 is none. 5's into 10 is 2. So you should have 1,802. And lastly then, 10.25 divided by 0.4. The only bit I'm bothered about is this bit here. So times in both sides by 10. We've got 102.5 divided by 4. So 4s into 1 is none, carry your 1. 4s into 10 is 2, that gets you to 8, so you're going to carry your 2. 4s into 22 is 5, carry the 2 because that gets you to 20. 4s into 25 is 6, that takes you to 24, so you're going to carry the 1. 4s into 10 is 2, carry your 2. 4s into 20 is 5, so you should have 25.625.